Chapter 3, Expanding Industry. We're looking at Eli Terry's pillar and scroll shelf clock, mahogany veneer, hand-painted poplar dial, and verse painting on glass from about 1822. The American system, government contracts were given to manufacturers for large quantities of standard goods, which periodically provided a large monetary investment in machinery and production equipment, for precision-made and interchangeable parts, for firearms, transportation, etc. There was also a shortage of skilled labor, so time and investment in machinery made sense. We see this new system at work in the production of rifles by Samuel Colt in Hartford, Connecticut during the 1840s, and in clocks by Eli Terry in the 1830s in Connecticut. The sewing machine by Isaac Merrick Singer in 1850 also was evident in this. There is a lack of strong guild and craft traditions in America. Skilled workers were still used at various places in the production cycle. At the same time, a middle-class market was being created which looked to fashion in the form of pattern, decoration, and more refined uses. Soon after 1800, Terry's production of wooden clocks grew considerably. The movement of the clocks were made of brass or wood, depending upon the requests of his customers. Brass was more commonly used for movements, but it was also considerably more expensive and difficult to work with. Terry knew that apprentices could cheaply rough-cut wooden wheels for more skilled journeymen to shape precisely into clockworks, making clocks slightly more cheap. And Terry was one of a number of Connecticut clockmakers who began to substitute water-powered machinery for apprentices in the production of these rough-cut wheels. By 1803, Terry purchased a mill to produce wood clock wheels, which still had to be finished by hand by skilled journeyman clockmakers. He purchased a grain mill and used the water wheel and main shaft to run saws and lathes, which helped speed the production of parts. He later created jigs and fixtures to produce a large number of interchangeable clock parts. This allowed for the rapid adjustment and assembly of clocks, freeing Terry from the task of fitting and modifying each individual piece of each clock. Using his own ingenuity and inventiveness, Terry was thus able to speedily cut wheels and pinions and other important clock parts accurately and repetitively. Terry spent the first 2 years of a new contract in 1806 inventing and perfecting machinery that could turn clock wheels with enough precision to require relatively little shaping by skilled craftsmen. He sold his manufactory to two of his assistants, Seth Thomas and Silas Hoadley, and retreated to his workshop to create the first machine in the world to be mass-produced using interchangeable parts. Terry envisioned a new kind of clock intended for mass production for machine-made parts. They would come from water-powered machines ready to go into clocks without any additional hand-cutting by skilled workmen. This would be a shelf clock, costing less than a tall clock. It would be made quickly and be easily repaired. The mass-produced wooden clocks, manufactured from interchangeable parts that poured from Terry's factories beginning in 1860s, were the world's first mass-produced machines made of interchangeable parts. As such, he would mass-market an affordable, complete case clock to American consumers. Terry's first clocks were offered in plain wooden boxes. Terry is also credited with the design of the pillar and scroll case. The pillar and scroll case provided a large clear dial in a wooden case about 30 inches tall and 6 inches deep. The upper part was the clock face. The lower part was either a mirror or a picture back painted on glass. Despite the small size of the clocks compared with traditional long case clocks, Terry was able to provide sufficient power through gearing for the clock to run a full 30 hours before it needed to be rewound. These are celery vases made of blown and gold and molded glass from the 1830s. The diamond or stripe patterns, or vertical ribs, were popular decorative patterns of the time. They were molds blown. Celery was somewhat exotic at the time. It was presented on a middle-class dining table as a glass or silver celery vase or stand offered from a tall glass, with leafy ends protruding like a flower vase. It was considered a hothouse plant in the early 19th century, requiring mounding a long growing season. Celery vases disappeared in the early 20th century due to more sophisticated commercial growing processes. They were easier to grow and more available on the market.